Hello, and welcome to Nickeloading In, my commentary channel. Some of you have seen some of my stuff in the past and are returning viewers. I apologize to you for being away for so long. I just had a lot of stuff come up in my personal life. Major changes just kept me from being able to devote time to doing this, let alone having the setup to do so. But I'm back, and I'm excited. I'm happy to be here and hoping to just jump right back into things. For those of you new here, never seen me before, you can check out some of my old content, but my channel was truthfully sparked straight out of the Franke, Jodi Hildebrandt nightmare that kind of took the media by storm back in 2023, and I pretty much kind of just covered that for the most part. If I did branch out, it was still very much living in the orbit of the LDS church and just different people, different relationships in the background, since there was a lot kind of going on at that time with the Vallow case, Tim Ballard. I'm not really sure, what I'll be covering going forward as I revive my channel, if you will. But I do have, some ideas that I've been kicking around, and we'll see how everything, plays out. However, if there's one thing I know I want my channel to be about, it's to approach the topics that I cover from more of a perspective of understanding, or from a place more of compassion than just judgment. I want to explore the reasons why they committed the crimes they did. The reality is we don't know these people for who they are, but we know them for what they have done. And for me, personally, for the most part, I do not believe that we just come into this world messed up. I believe that there are things that happen in our childhood especially, but throughout our lives, that truly shapes us and develops us. And I am more interested in how we got here than just kind of talking shit, for a lack of a better phrase, right? I think that if we took a step back and we truly tried to understand how someone could do what they have done, we can make more of an impact in preventing this from happening again, invoke real change, right? Jodi, for instance, and now this video is not meant to be about her, but to me, she's kind of the perfect example. Jodi's life was truly shit. I mean, she experienced a lot of trauma, and everyone and everything in her life seems to have just reinforced that pain for her. She didn't get the support she needed from the people she needed it from the most. And so she ends up creating these delusions of grandeur. And in my opinion, she used her dissociative tendencies as kind of the foundations of her principles of truth. Her history can tell me at least somewhat how she became this monster. And seeing as these beliefs run so deep within Jodi, I mean, they are an integral part of her actual personal identity at this point. I just don't think that putting her behind bars and locking her up is going to remedy the danger she actually poses to society. Furthermore, Jodi and Ruby are up for their first parole hearing this year, December 2026, which is just crazy to me. And we know that the justice system is broken, so we can only hope that Jodi serves the full maximum sentence. And in that case, she would probably end up, perishing in prison. But if Jodi doesn't serve the maximum and re-enters into society, my belief is she will 100% reoffend. I believe that she needs to be going through legitimate, extreme therapy to hopefully try to untangle these delusions and bring her back to reality while she's sitting behind bars. And that's why I think it's important that we take a look and try to really wrap our minds around understanding to the best of our ability what ingredients were present for this recipe for disaster, right? And that's in the hopes that we can truly kind of ensure the safety of the public long term. It's not to undermine the egregiousness of what these people have done, but to consider all variables at play here, all perspectives possible, like I said, to just really ensure and hope to prevent these types of things from happening again. Which leads me into my motivation for my video today with Kevin. Before I jump into that, though, let's go ahead and get my disclaimer out of the way. Everything in this video is my opinion. It is my speculation based off of the research that I've personally done for myself. I encourage that everybody go and do their own research, formulate your own opinions, and as I've always said, please do so respectfully.
I don't know if Kevin is a good dad or not, but I do know that Jodi's venom is real and that Kevin has all the signs of it.
To more effectively control and inflict the organization's teachings on children, you need the man out. And I think that was the main reason Hildebrandt did that with Kevin Franke.
So, the motivation and purpose of this video today. I simply just don't share in the majority opinion that Kevin is this piece of shit human being, a beta bitch, or, this failure of a father. For me, I feel like there's this failure to acknowledge kind of the extreme influences and variables that were at play here. There's kind of this tendency to kind of talk out both sides of the mouth in a way, like this duality of people recognizing and acknowledging that Connections was a cult or had cult-like tendencies and characteristics. But then in the next breath, we're like belittling and berating Kevin for, being brainwashed and manipulated and in a lot of ways being compliant to what people see as absurd, boundaries and requests. So here's the thing for me. If we consider how cults work, and here's just a few things that I collected just with a simple Google search and on characteristics of a cult. And one of the last slides here, I have highlighted kind of the things that, like, I can say for sure were a part of just the Connections culture, if you will. So if we consider that and we acknowledge that and we include that in our opinion of this situation, then how is it that we don't give Kevin a little bit of grace for being a victim of a cult? I mean, look, we got, for example, we've got Allison Mack from Nexum, right? And there was just recently a docuseries that I watched on this. I think it came out fairly recently. And for me, the way that they portrayed Allison in this and some of the other things that I've seen about it is they give her that acknowledgement of being a victim. And I don't know what it is about Kevin, because I mean, Allison Mack actually participated. Kevin, he just wasn't present. He wasn't there. He didn't check in, right? And I don't know if it's because, with Nexum it wasn't children, it was adults. Maybe that's part of it. I can't help but to wonder, is the judgment so harsh against Kevin because he was a man, and men shouldn't ever fall victim to this type of thing by, like, the societal image of masculinity? If he being a victim to this brainwashing and manipulation makes him weak. I mean, to me that's just gross. I hope that's not the opinion or basis of the opinion on Kevin. And furthermore, we have all these other men now coming forward and sharing their story and their experience, and it literally mirrors Kevin's.
Jodi broke Kevin Franke. He believed that he was an awful human being and didn't deserve to be around his family.
People will say, oh, what a coward. How could he not do this? And I'm going, hold on a second. I saw this woman. I've seen the destruction she's caused. There was an individual in my group that hadn't seen his kids in, I think, 6 to 8 months. And he kept on having to add on time, and I didn't quite understand why. And I'm thinking, this guy, is he going to like a massage parlor? Is this guy a true sex addict? No, it's because he did a double take. What's a double take? He saw an attractive woman, he saw once, but then he looked again. And he had to call his wife and let her know that he had done this, and that would add on time to not see his kids and to stay in whatever apartment he was in. I have a buddy that had to live in his car, couldn't see his brand new baby.
All right, so those are just a couple clips from the most recent docuseries that came out in September 2025 on HBO and Discovery Plus. It is titled Ruby and Jodi, A Cult of Sin and Influence, and for me personally, I think it's probably one of the most in-depth docuseries I've seen with a focus on Jodi. So if you haven't seen it, go ahead and check it out, but I wanted to use those two particular clips because it shows that Kevin wasn't the only one being separated from his family for extensive period of times. There's the one for 8 months, one who didn't even get to see his newborn. This is a pattern. This is a playbook for Jodi. This is what she did repeatedly. And for me, it makes me ask the question of, if those men had wives so devoted to Jodi in a lot of the same ways as Ruby was devoted, then what kind of abuse was going on with their children? I don't think it's too far of a reach to think that, you know, maybe it wasn't to the physicality that it got with the Franke family and the Franke children, but I believe that the mental and emotional abuse was definitely present for those children as well. And furthermore, with the amount of public shaming and just kind of berating of Kevin that has happened, the way he's been received by the public and their opinion of him, I don't feel like it creates a space that feels safe for these other men to come forward and share their stories. And so what then? It's also not a far reach to think that there are people still practicing Jodi's methods. We know that just because we remove a leader from a situation doesn't mean it erases their teachings. And there are people who will probably get on the same bandwagon at Jodi is just a martyr and that they've got it all wrong. And sometimes they're so convicted by their beliefs that they will ignore all the proof and evidence, even if it's put right in front of their face. Just some food for thought. Plus, there's also this piece.
I have a buddy living in Utah, in this area is very predominantly LDS. Just within his neighborhood, there were 5 divorces, and all of them were seeing Jodi.
How many couples do you think she is responsible for the divorce, for accelerated the divorce process?
If my math is correct, I think we're in the well over the hundreds. We might even be in the thousands.
And this is why I think it's important that we take a step back and we really consider all perspectives before we're just passing judgment, right? So here's kind of just the full perspective I have on Kevin. I think that Kevin's LDS faith made him uniquely vulnerable to Jodi's playbook. She weaponized the LDS's idea that, you know, people can suffer from corn addiction and it's kind of this crisis in a way, or that self-pleasure is a sin next to murder. Couple that with the way that the LDS faith drills obedience into you. I mean, from day one, obedience is huge in their teachings. I think this allowed Jodi the level of control that she was ultimately granted over Kevin and these other men, really. I also think that the way the LDS believe in this kind of hierarchy, if you will, this idea that some people are more anointed than others or spiritually wise, if you will. I think Kevin saw Jodi kind of as this vessel for God to deliver his messages through. And honestly, her public image and the reputation that she was given by the church itself probably only validated that for Kevin. I think this is why Kevin had so much complacency when it came to Jodi and her increasingly concerning requests or demands. And as if we needed more of a power imbalance here, Ruby was wrapped around Jodi's finger. I mean, hanging off of every word, bought in 210%. And Jodi had a legacy of ripping families apart and then empowering women, the wives, to seek full custody of the children. And this happened over and over and over again. And when it comes to the courts, she wasn't above playing dirty.
Jodi had my ex send a contract that I needed to sign for us to stay together. It said stuff like, I can still live in the house, but you can't sleep with me. I don't have to do anything with you for like 3 years. If you want our marriage to stay together, you gotta sign here. It was a divorce receipt.
My wife fully implemented Jodi's principles. She was using separation to coerce me to essentially become a Hildebrand follower as well. She sent a list of demands that I needed to adhere to avoid permanent separation or to avoid divorce. The demands was to attend Jodi's connections class. I had to attend a 12-step program. I had to find a sponsor.
Separation is a principle of truth, and separation is a necessary thing in order to become people who live in truth.
My wife, eventually she says, if you don't accept these teachings, I'm going to find a new dad for our daughter. You're replaceable. I need someone who is also a Jodi disciple.
Eventually, I refused to go to Jodi, but my wife continued to go back. Eventually, she left and took the children with her.
In May of 2016, after I refused to follow Jodi's teachings, my wife said, hey, I'm separating from you. And she then dictated all the time I could have with my daughter.
Well, my wife ran away with the kids. I'm still worried about her, and I was worried about them. And I was trying to get information out of Jodi to find out where they were, to see if they were safe. And so I went to Jodi's office. I said to Jodi, hey, this has been a huge confusion. My ex is acting like she's scared of me. And Jodi started acting like she should be scared of me.
Eventually, Adam talked to the police and said, I don't know what to do. I haven't seen my kids for weeks. And they said, file a parental kidnapping report. But he first wrote his wife an email saying, I'm going to file this. And I believe immediately she contacted Jodi and said, he's going to do this. So I'm going to follow your advice and file a protective order, and I'm filing for divorce at the same time.
One time, my wife comes home and she asked me to get our 1-year-old in the bathtub. And then out of nowhere, this is a time where it's totally prohibited by Jodi for us to be intimate or anything. Couldn't even talk together, couldn't sleep together, could nothing. She walks into the bathroom in lingerie. She starts teasing me in the doorway. I just was like, wow, you know? So I was like, here, get the baby out of the tub. And she takes the baby out, and then she comes back in the bathroom, and she looked at my private parts, and then she just looked at me in disgust like I was horrible and just walked off. In the protective order, she said in there that Adam was giving our baby a bath, and he had to yell for me to get the baby out of the bath, and when I went in there, he had an erection, and he was trying to hide it from me.
Shortly after the separation, my wife said, I will divorce you unless you see another counselor. And he was a domestic violence counselor. I had to say that I was abusive to my wife, I was abusive to our daughter, even though it was just patently false. And that was clearly an attempt from what I saw for her to then try to use that against me for a custody dispute. It was very methodical. Yes, either you don't see your kid because you're not admitting to this abuse, or you do admit to the abuse falsely, and then they use that against you to take your kid away in custody proceedings. It's very deliberate and planned from what I saw.
See, the stakes were immeasurably high for Kevin and probably these other men as well. He wasn't just looking at potentially going through divorce, he risked possibly never seeing his children again. And I believe that these were threats that were absolutely made to him directly. I think Ruby's little invitation to leave the home was very much, you do this or else, just as it was with pretty much every other man in this program, right? So this is why I give a bit of compassion to Kevin. He isn't just a one-off. it didn't just happen to him. I think he wasn't the only one who obeyed Jodi. I think he's just the one whose wife was handpicked by Jodi as her right hand, which ultimately led to the escalation of the abuse. I also want to point out that Jodi's level of control across the entire family was extensive. I mean, none of the children ever reached out to Kevin either. They didn't disobey Jodi or their mother. And then you've got the police. Sherry raises the alarm at one point that her siblings are being left at home, calls for a wellness check. Nothing ever comes of it. I don't even know that they even followed up. I don't know if they ever even spoke to Ruby. I don't think they ever spoke to Kevin for sure. Now, was Kevin so brainwashed in that moment in time that it would have made a difference? I guess we'll never really actually know. Is it insane for a father to be away from his family for 13 months under normal circumstances? 1,000% yes. It would be an incredibly concerning realization. But these weren't normal circumstances. I'm going to leave us with this last little bit. Kevin also isn't just sitting on his ass following probably what would be the most traumatizing experience of his entire life. He's actually out there fighting to try to make some type of change. He has owned his part and taken accountability for his poor choices with 8 passengers and putting his kids on the internet and the type of damage that does. He's acknowledged that fully, and he's fighting right alongside Sherry to try to make changes and create more regulations and oversight for family vloggers. And then to push it even further, he's also been trying to pass different bills, at least in his state of Utah, that demand more oversight and regulation of life coaches and like more of a clearer separation between what life coaching is and what therapy is, which I think is absolutely necessary, because there's just way too much of a pattern of these therapists getting in trouble with their license and then turning around and turning their practice into a life coaching thing, but still using the same therapeutic tactics, which, again, I made a video on this a while back, but they are not the same. They are not the same thing. In my opinion, Kevin is doing everything right. He's doing what he's supposed to do, I think, and acknowledging and taking accountability where it is absolutely his to own. So maybe we can have a little bit of compassion for this guy, right?